Thank you for purchasing a Sunglo Greenhouse. This video is intended to be used in conjunction with the enclosed manual that you will find located in the large kit box. It is intended to provide a visual demonstration of the skills described in the manual. Now, this video can be used for any of our freestanding models. The model we're building here today is a Model 1000C, and you may be building a larger or smaller unit. But the skills that we will be showing you today will work on any of those models. Again, thank you for purchasing the Sunglo Greenhouse, and please feel free to call us if you have any questions. This is a picture of all of the tools that you will need to facilitate the construction of your greenhouse. All of these tools are also listed in the manual. This is an example of a Model 1000D greenhouse as it will arrive from the factory to you. It will arrive as curbside delivery. It will contain 5 boxes. The greenhouse we will be building today is going to be a Model 1000C, which will have 4 boxes. Instead of 2 of these larger boxes, it will have only 1 of them.
Okay, once your Sunglo Greenhouse has arrived, we'd like you to start with opening up the large kit box. In that box is this envelope. In this envelope is your manual, your packing checklist, your wiring diagram, and all of the other necessary paperwork for the installation of your greenhouse. After you've looked over this information, please take the opportunity to lay the greenhouse out on the cardboard pads that came in the large kit box. We'd like you to separate these components so that you can become familiar with them and do the inventory with the packing checklist at the same time. Our aluminum parts here, our door, our cedar wood slats, our wall inners and outers, our cut panels, the kit box with all the small components in it, our power panel, our long parts box, wire shelving, our fan, fresh air intake shutter, heater, and soil mixing tub. Okay, we have all of the inner components of the Sunglo Greenhouse laid out before us here. Everything is nested very carefully. When peeling them apart, please exercise a great deal of caution so that you don't damage any pieces. As you can see, the inner pieces are tightly nested and difficult to identify at times. The inner roofs also are very tightly nested, so we'd like you to exercise a great deal of caution when peeling them apart. Prior to the installation of the greenhouse, you're going to have to prepare your foundation. This is a typical 4x6 pressure-treated wood foundation base utilizing 5/8 crushed rock with a plastic vapor barrier underneath the rock. In addition to that, we've taken the opportunity, while the greenhouse is not assembled, to install a pathway down the center of the foundation base to make it easier for you when you are in the greenhouse. This here is a piece of the 4x6 pressure-treated wood that you'll be utilizing. Please refer to the manual for all the critical dimensions in preparing this foundation, as it is very important that you maintain those dimensions and maintain a plumb, level, and square foundation base. In order to determine that the foundation base is square, you need to measure across the diagonals. Using your tape measure and your assistant, we're going to now measure those diagonals to make sure that they are the same. So from point to point, outside to outside, we're going to check these measurements. It is critical that they are the same. Be consistent with those measurements, being outside to outside or inside to inside, but just make sure you are consistent. Great. In addition to that, please make sure that the foundation is level. Level and square cannot be emphasized enough. Taking a 4-foot level, placing it on the wood foundation, and checking to make sure that the bubble is in between the lines. That's level. On all 4 sides. Now we fasten these wood plates together using some angle irons on the inside and some rebar stakes through the wood into the ground to help secure it to the ground. Once you've determined that the greenhouse foundation base is plumb, level, and square, you're all set and ready for your installation. Okay. Step 1 of the greenhouse installation requires you to start laying out your lower U-rails. By placing them on the wood foundation base with the miters of the U-rails tight to each corner, you're going to check these for square. Again, using your tape measure across the diagonals of the greenhouse. Keep in mind also that this greenhouse does require electricity, and you may want to stub your electricity up at the back gable end, dead center, prior to doing the installation process to make it easier to hook that up later on. So once again, we're going to check these diagonals on the lower U-rails. Once these diagonals are set, same dimension, I want you to mark the inner and outer of the corners with your pencil, because you will be removing these to put a bead of caulk underneath. Okay. Now you've got the lower U-rails caulked and back into position to your marks. We're going to check for square one more time. But prior to doing that, I want you to place 2 screws into the lower U-rail about 3 inches apart from each corner. Start by pilot drilling a small hole. After you've drilled your pilot holes into the aluminum U-rails with the drill bit that we supply in the kit, you're going to find the foundation screws. Foundation screws are the 1-inch Phillips bits here. Then you're going to take one of these foundation screws, place it into the pilot hole, and secure the U-rail to the wood foundation base. Once you have 2 opposite corners secured down to the wood, I want you to check square one more time. That way, if you're slightly off square because you may have moved the lower U-rails around, you only have a couple of screws that you have to remove. And once you've determined that it is square, then you can proceed to finish the foundation screws. Okay. Once you have your lower U-rails attached firmly to your foundation base, it's time to put the corner posts in. Each corner post has a wide side to the outside and a narrow side to the outside. The wide side always goes in direction of the short length of the greenhouse, or the gable end of the greenhouse. You'll take the corner post, placing it over the corner and gently tapping it into place with your rubber mallet or your dead blow hammer. You want to make sure that the corner post is tight to the outside corner of the lower U-rails. Then we'll drill it and secure it with rivets. Okay. With the corner post in place, we're going to drill and rivet. On the corner posts and wall posts, we are using short rivets through this process. We are going to drill and rivet this corner post in 3 different places. 2 on the outside and 1 on the inside. Okay, with all 4 of your corner posts in place, now you can determine where your wall posts and your door posts and the rest of your foundation screws are going to go. With your tape measure, we're going to measure on the inside of each corner post to the inside of each corner post. 30-inch marks for your wall posts and your door posts, and 16-inch marks for your foundation screws. Okay. With the corner posts in place and the lower U-rails secured to the foundation base, with your foundation screws every 16 inches as marked, it's now time to put the wall posts in. The wall posts will be put into the lower U-rails, very similar to the corner posts, at the 30-inch marks. Whenever you're ready.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, once you have the wall post secured into the lower U-rail and set to your mark, it's time to drill and rivet. We're going to drill and rivet using 2 short rivets from the inside out. Make sure when you are riveting it that you purchase or secure the metal to the metal just about equal in each spot. Equidistant is fine. After you have all the wall posts secure, in particular making sure that you have wall posts in the rear of the greenhouse, it's time to put the door posts in. Door posts are 77 inches long with an angle cut to them. Please make sure that that angle cut corresponds to the slope of the roof. And you'll place the doorposts in on your 30-inch marks, just as you did with the wall posts. Got her in there. Down. When putting in the wall posts and the door posts, it is important to make sure that you are maintaining a plumb level and square line to the lower U-rail. Using a torpedo level, you can place that up against the edge of the posts and making sure that the line is in between, the bubble is in between the line, excuse me. You can then secure the posts to the lower U-rail.
We've now come to the time to start putting up the walls for the lower section of the greenhouse. We're going to take 2 of the panel supports for each segment. We are then going to put in the outer wall and inner wall for each of the segments all the way around the greenhouse, starting with one long side, proceeding to the back, going to the other long side. We're now going to put in the lower wall sections. We're going to start off by putting the outer pieces in. We'll then put in a panel support, and then we will slide the inner piece of the wall into place. We will do this first along one of the long walls, then the back wall, then the other side long wall. You'll notice that the long walls are covered in a blue film. I should say the lower walls are covered in a blue film. We peel the blue film off, which is really just a protective covering. And we will then slide the wall into place. For each of the outer walls, we're going to use 2 of the panel supports. The panel support is jammed into the bottom U-rail, and it holds the outer wall against the outer portion of the bottom U-rail. Now these can be a very, very tight fit. Sometimes you can push them down with your hands. Sometimes it helps to have a blunt object to help you push them down. We are now going to slide the inner portion of the wall into place. We're going to help lubricate the inner wall going into place by misting with just a little bit of water from a spray bottle. And we are going to slide the inner wall in between the outer wall section and the inside of the rail. This is one completed wall section. We're now going to duplicate this process throughout the rest of this wall, the back, and the far side. Now that we have all of the walls completed on one side, we're going to cap off these pieces with the upper H rail. This is a 10-foot long piece that we are going to put on top of all of the posts. We're going to slide the H rail between the inner wall and the corner post on one side, and then just outside the corner post on the other side. We're going to then move down section by section and get both the inner piece of the wall and the outer piece of the wall inside of the H bracket. As soon as that is done, we will use a mallet to hit down on the top of the H rail to secure it into place. We're now going to go ahead and drill into the post. And we will use a long rivet to secure the post temporarily in place. We will repeat this on the far corner. We will drill into between the upper H rail and the corner post. We'll be careful not to drill too far in so we don't hit the acrylic, and we'll then use a long rivet to secure it in place. One of our goals is to have this piece as close to lining up with the H rail, the corner post lining up with the H rail as possible. As a hint to help us get everything put into place, sometimes we use a little bit of masking tape. We use it to hold the corner walls together so that they don't tend to move out while we're putting on the upper H rails. We have now put up the H rail on both of the long sides. We're now going to put up the H rail on the back wall. That H rail comes in, and you'll notice it has a flat edge to it. This is going to sit outside of the H rail that we've already put up. We're going to fit it right in, and as with the other pieces, we're going to make certain that the inner and outer walls sit into the H rail, and it will go on top of the wall posts. We will now also drill and put a rivet into this point at right here to hold the H rail into place. With the other three walls up, we now have to decide which way we're going to have our door open. Now our door will open outwards from the greenhouse. In this case, we've decided that we're going to have the door open outwards and in this direction. What that means is that we're going to put a motorized shutter on the right side, and we're going to put in a full wall in inner and an outer, and a smaller H piece at this point. We'll do that now, and then we'll show the installation of the shutter on the other side. We're now going to put the upper H rail in place for this front corner. We're going to use the flanged portion to the outside, just as with the back. You'll notice that the inner portion has been notched to slide into this H rail, or into this wall post. We will now go ahead and put a rivet in the corners of the far corner and the inner corner, and at the same time we will go ahead and use our torpedo level to check the level of this piece and this piece to make sure that we're still straight and plumb.
Okay. Now we're about to put our motorized fresh air intake shutter in place. We're going to take the shutter with the vanes to the outside and the motor to the inside, placing it in the lower U-rail and up against the inside of the corner post. With that secured, we'll take a shutter post, placing it into the lower U-rail up against the other edge of the shutter, tapping it down. Then we're going to place an outer filler and an inner filler right next to the shutter, and then capping that off with a 30-inch slotted H-rail. And again, all of the H-rails, the heavy H-rails are horizontal, and the light H-rails are vertical pieces. This heavy H-rail is slotted on both sides so that you can place it into the door post, into the corner post, over the shutter post, and secure them down. Using your torpedo level, make sure that the upper H piece, the 30-inch slotted H, is level. Then drill and rivet from the inside using short rivets. We want to secure it with rivets in the corner here, the shutter posts, upper and lower, in the corner here. Okay, now that we have all of the upper H rails over the tops of the wall posts, we can go ahead and proceed and drill and rivet the wall post to the upper H rail. We're going to use short rivets here as well. We'll be placing 2 rivets into this. Okay, now that we have all of the lower wall assemblies finished, it's time to put the rear gable end up. Just like the lower U-rails, we're going to measure 30 inches for each one of the vertical back wall posts. We have our 30 and our 60-inch measurements here, which corresponds to each one of the wall posts. Now, we're going to take one of the upper wall posts, has a cut gable end, just like the doors are. The angle cut needs to correspond with the angle of the roof. I'm going to place that into the upper H-rail and rivet in position. Okay, now with the upper wall posts in position, you're ready to put the fan fillers in. We have a lower fan filler and an upper fan filler, and we'll go ahead and put those in right now. Just like the lower walls, we'll put the outer in first, a couple of panel supports, an inner, and then we're going to cap this off with a 30-inch slotted H. Again, these are slotted on both ends. And you'll place that directly over the outer and the inner in between the upper wall posts. Using your torpedo level, make sure that this is level before riveting it in place. At this point in the assembly of the greenhouse, we're going to be doing some drilling above our head. It's important to be wearing safety glasses while doing that to make sure that you don't have any metal particles fall into your eyes. So with that being said, it's time to put the fan up. The fan has vanes just like the shutter does. They are to face to the outside with the fan motor to face to the inside. We're going to orient the fan in the greenhouse so that it is opposite of the fresh air shutter so we maximize the amount of airflow through the room. And just like the shutter, the fan post is going to go in to the H-rail and to the post. We're then going to place a post next to the fan and tap it down. Then an outer panel, a panel support, the outer filler in place. It's now time to put the inner filler in. And just like the shutter, same position. And slide that down and then cap everything off with a 30-inch slotted H. Okay, with the upper 30-inch H in place, we want to make sure it is level before we start drilling it in place. Okay, with the fan assembly complete from the inside, we're going to take a vent frame, place it in the top of the opening. Top of the vent frame edges should be equal to the top of the upper wall posts. All right, now that we have the fan in place, we want to go to the outside of the greenhouse here and place a couple rivets in the upper wall posts to help better secure the fan and its weight to the greenhouse. Okay, just like the shutter in the front of the greenhouse, we want to secure the fan to the outside of the aluminum rails and posts by drilling through the aluminum into the shutter frame and riveting it in place with a long rivet. Okay, now we're ready to put the curved corner panels in. Just like the walls, there's an outer and an inner. We're going to place the outer in first with a couple of panel supports, then the inner. Please make note that the curved corner is cut in only one direction in which it can fit. If you try it the other way, it just won't fit. The inners are definite lefts and definite rights. Make sure that the flat edge or the leading edge of the curved corner inner is facing towards the inside of the greenhouse. Okay. After you have the outer and the inner curved corner panels in place, it's time to cap them off with the curved corner channels. Curved corner channel is slotted in the bottom and has a flange that goes to the outside. The slot will go over the top of the upper H, like so, and then we work it over the inner and outer panels. When we get to the upper wall post, we'll simply pull it over the top of that wall post and secure it with a rivet. Okay, using long rivets, we're going to drill through the curved corner channels into the top of the upper H rail to secure it to the top of the upper H rail. Slight angle is fine. We'll repeat this using 2 rivets to secure it. Now we'll go to the inside and secure the curved corner channel to the upper wall post. Okay, once you have the curved corner post riveted in the bottom, it's time to secure it to the upper wall post, making sure that the curved corner channel is tightly pressed down upon the top of the upper wall post. You want to just whack it a couple times with the dead blow hammer. Then we're going to drill and rivet in place using short rivets. Okay, with the curved corner channels in place in the front and the rear, it's time to put the vent frame up in the front of the greenhouse. We need to maintain a distance from the center of the H to the door, the lower U-rail where the door is going to place, of 72 inches, so that your door can fit. So we're going to place this in position between the door posts. Again, using a 30-inch slotted H. And temporarily clamp it in position so we can measure it. Once we've determined that the measurement is correct, we'll go ahead and check it for level and then drill and rivet it in place to secure it. And it looks good to me. Okay, we're going to put the ridge header into the curved upper corner channels by placing the ridge header into the slots and sliding it in position over the top of the vent frame. You want the outside of the curved corner channels to be flush to the outside of the ridge header. We're going to clamp it in place. And then we'll drill and rivet using long rivets at slight angle to get underneath the ridge header. Okay, once you have this end completed, we'll repeat the same procedure on the other end. All right, it's time to put the trusses up. Just like all the other measurements in the greenhouse, everything is based on a 30-inch center. So we're going to take a tape measure, we're going to place it on the inside of the upper H rail, make our 30, 60, 90 measurements. Those measurements should correspond directly over the top of each wall post. Then in addition to that, we need to mark the ridge header above us so that we can correspond to truss ends to each side. We like to mark underneath and inside so that we can have proper placement for the trusses. Again, 30s, 60s, and 90s. And if you have longer greenhouses, you'd certainly continue. Okay. With those marks in place, time to put a truss up. Each curved truss is slotted on both ends. The curved side of it will go down into the upper H, the straight side going up into the ridge channel at our 30-inch marks. Taking that slot, placing it into the ridge channel, and then into the upper H. With it to the mark and directly over the top of the corresponding wall post, we'll drill and rivet, and we're going to secure this using the long rivets. Okay, now that you have one of the trusses up in position at your 30-inch mark in both the upper H rail and the ridge header, just finish up with the rest of the trusses. Okay, now we have all of our trusses in position. It's time to secure the hanger bars inside the greenhouse. Just like everything else in the greenhouse, all of our measurements are based on 30 inches. So using your tape measure, we're going to measure from the top of the ridge header, or the leading edge of the ridge header, just making sure you're consistent throughout. And we're going to mark 30 inches for the hanger bar placement. Okay, now there are two different types of hanger bars that we use in the Model 1000 series greenhouses. All the hanger bars start with an 1806 number. Please make sure you're using 1806s as hanger bars, otherwise you're going to be in trouble, for lack of a better term. Okay, the 1806-12 will start on the inside of the curved corner truss at that 30-inch mark and go up underneath the truss bar and be secured with short rivets. All right, the 1806-12 has a flanged end to it. We want to put that on the vertical edge of the curved corner channel and flush to the top of the curved corner channel. Once it's in position to your 30-inch mark that you placed earlier, we're going to clamp that in position, then move over to the other side to your 30-inch mark, clamp that in position, and drill and rivet in place. Now, because you're drilling into the trusses, which is much thicker material, we're going to use long rivets on the trusses and short rivets on the ends. Okay, now that you have your overhead hanger bar in place on the end, it's time to put the centers in. Again, staying with the same theme of using the 1806 hanger bars, this is an 1806-11. We're going to place it back to the 30-inch marks on the trusses and clamp in position. And drill and rivet, just like the same. And again, we're going into the heavier truss material in the center, so we're going to use long rivets. Okay, all hanger bars in position. It's time to put the roofs up. We're going to start with the inner this time as opposed to how we started with the lower wall sections. The inner roof section has a flat edge to it. This flat edge needs to go to the inside. So we're going to take that flat edge and we're going to place it on the truss edges here, curved corner truss edge here, and slide it up underneath the ridge header. Once we get it underneath the ridge header, then we can pull it down into the upper H channel. With that in position, we're going to now cap it off with a roof outer. Same procedure, we're going to slide that roof outer up underneath the ridge header and down into the upper H. You want to make sure that the edge of the roof outer is equidistant to the truss edge. In other words, we want to have a reveal of about 1/8 of an inch between the edge of the truss here and the edge of the roof outer so that we can place our panel locks down for no interference. Okay, with one roof in position, we're going to go ahead and place the next roof in position. Placing the inner in first with the flat edges up against the outside edges of the trusses. Now, if you find that it's difficult to get the top of the outer into the ridge header up on top, take the inner out of the upper H rail, pull it down slightly, giving yourself a little bit of margin of room to slide the outer up underneath that ridge header. Back into the upper H rail. And then the outer into the upper H rail. Again, maintaining the reveal. Okay, when you're putting the roofs in, it's important and very helpful if you do have an assistant. With the assistant holding the roof in position from the outside, you're going to take a panel support and underneath the ridge header to help support the roof outer, you're going to place that in position and squeeze it in, just like we did for the walls. Make sure that the roof is tight up against the inside of the ridge header and then squeeze your panel supports in place. Also keep in mind the reveal that we talked about earlier and maintain that reveal. Once you have the panel supports in place into the ridge header, you can then pull the roof inner back into position and then reposition the roof inner and outer into the upper H rail. Okay, once you have two roofs in position, it's time to lock them down with the panel lock. As you can see here, the panel lock has a locking rib section that goes over the top of the trusses. This is the part that will go into the upper ridge channel from the outside over the top of the roof. What I'm going to do now is with a razor knife, gently relieve these edges so that they'll slide up underneath the ridge header much easier. Just taking the razor knife, being careful, cutting away from the body, just gently relieve those edges. Now the panel lock is shaved back at the other end, and the shaved back portion goes over the outside of the upper H rail. Okay, now with your panel lock revealed, relieved as we've shown earlier, we're going to take your dead blow hammer or your rubber mallet and we're going to mate the panel lock over the top of the truss until it locks. Once it locks down, we're going to gently work it underneath the ridge header with it all the way up against the inside of the ridge header. Very slowly tap the panel lock down over the truss until we get to the curve section. So here we go. Ensure that the locking portion of the panel lock is directly over the truss. Also, clean your hands now, because otherwise you're going to make the panel locks look ugly. Okay, we're halfway done with the panel lock. You now have it down over the straight part of the ridge, and we want to bring it down over this part of the truss here. Make sure that it's up underneath the ridge header by tapping the end of it. You get that dull thud, it's underneath. Also make sure that the outer panel's reveal maintains the same as it was when you installed it. So holding the panel lock down gently, continue tapping along the curve. Periodically check to make sure the roof outers haven't moved on you, changing your reveal. If they have, just pull them in a little bit before you get it all the way down. Once you've finished one, we'll put another roof section in, follow it with another panel lock until we're out the door. Then we'll proceed to the other side. Okay, with your roof panels in position, your straight trim and your curved trim secured from the outside, you can start to install your panel supports in the lower roof sections. By taking a panel support, lifting up on the inner panel slightly so that you get some clearance, take the panel support and from the right to the left, move it over into the upper H-rail, get it into position, and squeeze down. This exerts pressure on the outer roof, holding it in position. And again, repeat from the left to the right. Again, maintaining an equidistant, just like we did in the lower walls with the panel support, and then bring the roof inner back into position, and you're all set to move on to the next section. Now that we have the roof up, we're going to put the curved corner trim and the straight trim up to cap the roof ends off. Curved corner trim, there's a left and a right hand. The curved crinkled edges always go to the outside. We'll place this up on the roof curve. I'm going to drill using a short rivet from the outside and rivet this in place. Now from the front, we want to maintain some pressure on this curved part up against the curved corner truss. So using your fingers, or you can clamp it with your vice grips, we want to drill and rivet about every 4 inches and place a long rivet through the crinkle part of the curved corner trim into the curved corner truss. Okay, we have the curved corner trim up. It's now time to put the straight trim up. Straight trim has a little notch in it. There is a definite left and a definite right. That little notch portion goes to the underside of the ridge header over the outer plastic and then tight up against the ridge. And once it's in position here, we'll drill and rivet it in place. Now we're drilling through 3 pieces of material here, so we're going to use a long rivet in this position. Two rivets in each one of these will hold it in position. You want to make sure that they mate together and it covers up the edge of the ridge header. And once you have one rivet in position, you can go ahead and do the other one. Okay, you have the vent frame up already. It's time to put the vent door in. I've already attached one of the hinges onto the vent door it's an offset hinge using 3 rivets and 3 backup washers on the inside. The backup washers relieve the pressure that the rivets exert against the plastic to prevent it from cracking. We'll go ahead and put the door up into position so that the hinge is flush up against the upper H-rail and the peak of the door is centered to the peak of the greenhouse. We'll go ahead and drill and rivet it in place. Okay, now that your vent door is in position, you're going to install your vent latch so that you can actually operate the door. Vent latch is an articulated opener with 2 feet on the ends that will move when it's opened. We want to hold this at a 45-degree angle, making sure that the notches or the indents are to the outside so that the vent latch opens in the proper position. We'll hold this up against the vent door and the underside of the ridge header at about a 90-degree angle to itself to determine its exact placement. Once we determine its exact placement, we can then clamp it in position, drill and rivet.
2, 1, cue.
All right, with the vent hinge riveted to the ridge header and riveted to the vent door itself using long rivets and backup washers on the inside, it's at about a 90-degree angle. We're going to take the spring, closure spring, and put one end through one side of the vent hinge and one end through the other side of the vent latch, excuse me. Alrighty. That way it's got pressure on it. So when it closes, it stays closed. Okay, we're now about to install the door. First thing you have to do is put the door threshold down over the U-rail. There's a lip on the edge of the threshold here that will go to the inside. We'll place the threshold over the top of the U-rail, and then with the long threshold screws, we'll drill them down through the U-rail into your foundation base. We have the threshold in position. It's time to put the door jambs in. We have a left hand, a right hand, and a top door jamb. Door jambs have a slight edge to them over here in which the door will rest up against once the door is in position. And they are mitered cut at the top and straight cut on the bottom. Placing the left position door jamb in first, we'll slide it into the doorpost, up over the top of the threshold, and down, flush to the outside. We'll place the top with that back also in position in next. Inside the upper H, making sure that the miters match, and then we'll put the right side in. Going from the top and working your way down. With the door jambs in place, it's now time to hang a door. To hang the door, we've pre-attached two hinges, one on top, one on the bottom, about 4 to 6 inches off the top and about 4 to 6 inches off the bottom. Placement isn't that critical. However, you do want to make sure that the hinge is set in a position so that the barrel is just to the outside edge of the door itself. To maintain proper swing for the door, we're going to take two pieces of the cardboard that the door was packaged in and lay it down over the top of the threshold. This will give us about a 1/4 inch reveal so that we can properly position the door. Turning the hinges to the outside, we'll place the door into the door opening on top of the cardboard, and we want to maintain an equal reveal all the way around the outside of the door as best as possible. Once you've determined that your reveal is good, we will then drill and rivet the hinges into place on the door posts themselves. With the hinges on the door and the hinges set up against the door post here, we want to make sure we're going to use long rivets here because we're drilling through the door post, through the door jamb, and attaching the hinge. Okay, you've got two of the hinges set onto the door and to the door post. At this point in time, we want to see how the door swings. So we're just going to open it up, remove our cardboard spacers here, and make sure the door opens and closes freely. If it doesn't, you may have to adjust the hinges accordingly. Once you maintain that the door has opened and closed properly, you can start to install the other two hinges, equidistant from the top and the bottom. With your door already hinged, it's time to put the door handle on. On the back of the door handle package, there's a template. We want to cut that template out and use it to determine where the holes will go for the door handle. I've already done that on this one. We're ready to proceed. We'll hold the edge of that door template up against the door and determine the height of the handle. In this case, this is where it's going to be. We're going to take your drill bit and we're going to pilot or mark spots where the larger hose will be. We're going to use a 5/8 inch drill bit to drill through the door so that the door handle hardware can pass directly through it. Okay, we're ready to hang the door handle now. Okay, with the holes drilled through the door here, assemble the door handle per the manufacturer's instructions on the back of the pack. The locking mechanism is going to go through the handle in the front. The striker plate or transfer plate will go into there. The spring, with the large part of the spring the inside, set up to the holes, and then the inside latch placed over that transfer bar, and then you'll screw it all together with the screws supplied in the package. With the door handle in place, it's time to mount the strike plate. We'll close the door, determine where the strike plate is going to be placed up against the strike plate edge here. Once we determine where that's going to be, we'll clamp it in place with the vice grip, drill and rivet it, and then rivet the assembly to the door post. Okay, with the strike latch attached to the strike plate here, we're going to put it in position underneath the door latch, up against the door post, making sure that the latch is securely up against the strike plate. Hold it in position and mark it with our pencil so that we can then now drill it and rivet it in position. With the strike plate on the strike latch in position and the door closed, we can now place a second rivet to secure the whole assembly to the door post. And then we're going to place a couple more rivets just to hold it in place, and then we have our door done. And we're done. Now that your door has been successfully installed, it's time to secure the door jambs to the inside of the greenhouse using long rivets. We're going to place 3 rivets in the upper door jamb, 1 on each side, 1 in the middle, and 3 rivets along each side of the door jamb left and right. The door you're going to receive with your Sunglo greenhouse is going to have a blue protective film on the glazing exteriors, just like the lower walls and the roof sections were on the greenhouse. In this case, to remove the blue protective film from the door, take a razor knife and gently score around the black trim, peel it off, and you're done, both sides. Now we'll do the next side. Next step in the greenhouse installation will be the benches. Benches will be on both sides of the greenhouse, full length, 30 inches wide, and 30 inches off of the base of the lower U-rail. To get that measurement and make it easier for you, if you take one of the bench T framework pieces, which is the 1006-2 piece, exactly 30 inches long, you can use that as a measuring stick. Be consistent with your measuring marks with this so that you can have a consistent, level, plumb, and square bench for your greenhouse. In order to do that, we're going to take this and place it on top of the lower U-rail, up against each wall post and each corner post, and make a mark. And again, maintain consistency with that mark throughout the greenhouse, and your benches will be set fine. With all of your 30-inch measurements completely done around the greenhouse, time to put up one of the 30-inch pieces of bench T. Clamp it to your wall post and to the corner post, and in this corner post we want to maintain a little bit of an edge to allow the acceptance of the long piece of bench T that's going to go up against the long side. So with it clamped in position and checked with your level, it's time to drill and rivet it in place. We want to place rivets above and below on both sides of this, and then repeat this throughout the entire greenhouse in all 4 corners.
1 Q.
After you've drilled and riveted in the 4 places on the bench T in all 4 corners, we can then proceed to put up the long piece against the back side wall. With the 30-inch bench T's drilled, riveted, and set into the corners, it's time to take the long piece and put that on top of the bench T's in the corners, up against your wall posts. Pull it tight to the end and clamp it in position, keeping in mind that you'll want to have the clamp out of the way when you start to drill. I'm going to go over to the other end, clamp it in position, and we'll be all set to drill. Holding the long bench T on your mark and checking it with a level, it's time to drill into the wall posts. We're going to use short rivets throughout this process. At this point, once you have it drilled, we're going to place a rivet in this position here, and then we're going to place a rivet down below and a diagonal. If later on you'd like to add rivets, you can add them in the other spots as well. With your horizontal bench T's in place, it's time to put in the diagonal leg for your benches. Diagonal pieces are cut and about a 45-degree notches in each end. We're going to take this and hold it down to the lower U-rail, up against the top of the lower U-rail and up against the wall post, clamp it in position, drill and rivet it. With your diagonal bench T's set and done and out of the way, it's time to finish off the long piece of bench T. Again, just like in the back, we're going to hold it up against the set bench T in the back, clamp it in place, drill and rivet. Then move to the front, pull it forward, drill and rivet. Then we'll be ready for the next step. Completing the bench framework, we're going to take the 1006-2 piece, lay it on top of the bench T in the back so that it is dead centered onto your wall post. Clamp it in position, drill and rivet it. Once we drill and rivet that, we will take your torpedo level and hold the diagonal leg up against the bench T here, and once the bubble is in between the lines, we're going to clamp this piece in place and we can drill and rivet that. To determine the final measurement for your bench T so that you can place your slats in position, rather than taking the tape measure out and measuring every single one, it's just as easy to use a corner slat, in the corner of course. Place that into position. Then bring the bench T over to the corner slat, giving yourself just a little bit of room so it'll be easy to take the corner slat out. Then clamp it in position. And you know exactly where you need to drill and rivet now. With your corner slat in position, you can use that as a handy bench top because that's what it's for. Time to put in your center wood slats. The center slats are a little bit wider, but again, maintain the bench T centered on your wall post. Place your slat into position. Allow a little bit of room for it to move. Clamp it in position in the front. And you're ready to drill and rivet again. Your benches are in, it's time for the wire shelving. With the Model 1000C, you're going to receive two 8-foot pieces of wire shelving. You'll receive a bag of hardware which will have the end braces, your diagonal leg pieces, and a bag of C-clamps. And we'll show that installation right now. We'll take one of the end pieces, place it into the corner of the greenhouse so that the bottom of the brace is flush to the bottom of your upper H-rail. Clamp that in position, and we'll drill and rivet in 4 spots using the long rivets.
Okay, hold on just a second.
Your brace is riveted in position in 4 spots using the long rivets. We'll take the wire shelving now, place it into the corner up against the brace, and then hold the wire shelving so that it is underneath the bottom edge of the truss tabs. With this being held in position, we're now going to take one of the C-clamps, place it dead center on the section, hold it in position so that the bottom of the C-clamp is flush to the bottom of the upper H-rail. I'm supporting this with my elbow here. If you have someone to assist you, it certainly is easier, but not necessary. We're going to drill and rivet this into position, again using long rivets. We'll repeat this on each section so that we have cedar slats below and C-clamps above. And next we'll put in our diagonal leg with at least one C-clamp position in the back holding the wire shelving up against the upper H rail. We're going to take one of the diagonal legs with the claw front towards the front and the flat piece resting up against the wall post, hooking it up underneath the wire shelving, having the flat portion up against the wall post, and taking your level, placing it directly over, and then lowering it until the bubble is between the lines. Then we're going to clamp the leg into position and drill and rivet. The leg has a hole dead center. That's designed for drywall scenarios. In this case, we're going to want to drill straight through it, and using 2 long rivets on either side, clamp it in position with the rivets. Keep in mind that you want to be left and right of the center of that hole. And repeat on all the rest of the wall posts. Depending upon the Sunglo greenhouse that you receive, you may have 220 volt electricity available or 110 volt electricity available. The power panel that you see here is a 220 volt power panel set up for a 220 volt electric heater. Over here, mounted in the greenhouse, is the 110 volt power panel for a 110 volt electric heater. Either one will work fine, and again, we do recommend that you hire a licensed electrician for the installation of your electrical needs for the greenhouse. Time to hang the power panel. Power panel has your cooling and heating thermostat set up on it, a light timer, and a place for you to bring your power in from underneath so that you can energize the whole power panel. Once you determine where the power panel is going to be placed, you can then finish your wiring at a later time. For this purpose, we're going to hold the power panel up against the bottom of the upper H rail and on the very leading edge of your upper wall post. We're going to drill through here with a couple pilot holes and then secure it to the upper H rail and the upper wall post with a couple of the foundation screws. And one of the last things we're going to do for the installation of the greenhouse is drill weep holes in the exterior side of the upper H rail and the lower U rail to allow water that may accumulate in these rails to escape. We're going to take a 1/4 inch drill bit and drill a hole dead center on the upper H rail here above the halfway mark so that we can allow that water that again will accumulate up here to escape. Okay, with the hole drilled in the upper H rail, it's now time to do the same in the lower U rail. And once you've finished one section of the greenhouse with the weep holes, just continue all the way around until you're done. With the installation of your Sunglo greenhouse complete, the last thing you have to do is talk about bringing your electricity into the greenhouse as we discussed earlier when we did the foundation. Bringing your power line up into this J box here, this junction box, so that you can energize both your exhaust fan and your motorized fresh air intake shutter. Sunglo does recommend using a licensed certified electrician for this application, and we hope you enjoy your greenhouse.